All right, guys, today in front of me, I have two core releases from OH Ingram. I have their straight rye whiskey and their straight bourbon whiskey. Now, I was able to judge their single barrel straight rye whiskey in the Ascot Awards, which received my highest score. It also won several other medals and categories as well. So the question is, how do these core releases stand up to that single barrel release? All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our straight rye whiskey. Now, this one comes in at 98 proof. It is aged for a minimum of 3 years. It is distilled in Indiana. However, it is aged on a floating rickhouse on the Mississippi. So one of the things that makes that unique is that it is exposed to the climate unique to the Mississippi River. Let's get in the nose. You know, there is a lot of sweetness on this rye. It doesn't have those traditional kind of rye characteristics to it on the aroma. It is very sweet. There's like further into the glass, there's like this toffee kind of butterscotch mixture. There is a little bit of like some black pepper there that I pick up further into the glass. Further away, it steers more towards that traditional kind of more of like a bourbon note. You know, you get some of those kind of rich vanillas and rich caramels in there. Again, black pepper and like a butterscotch kind of toffee mixture further into the glass. And now as it opens up a little bit more, you start to pick out more of that citrus that starts to appear there further away from the glass. So it kind of becomes like this orange kind of lemon. Again, there's, you know, some of those traditional more bourbon notes, the vanillas and the caramels. But further into the glass, you know, those notes still kind of stand true. It's more of that like butterscotch and toffee kind of mixture with a little bit of like some black pepper in there. Beautiful nose though. Let's get in the palate, guys. Cheers. Yeah, so one of the things you first notice about this is the oiliness on the palate. Coats the palate very well. I kind of get it's like an oily kind of like a Cracker Jack. There is a lot of nice vanillas, caramels to it, a lot of sweetness. But there's also on the back end, that's where it becomes more of that rye, right? So you do start to get like that rye, a little bit of that rye grain, that flavor, that spiciness there. And then, you know, as that transitions to the back, a little bit of that black pepper there starts to develop. Let's get a second sip. So second sip offered a little bit more there on the palate. So again, that oiliness definitely plays a really big part. And I think the flavors and how it kind of saturates and sticks around the palate. Middle of the palate into the back now, it starts to change. This it's like a mixed kind of berry that appears there on the middle of the palate with some of that rye spice, a little bit of that graininess. And then that kind of transitions into the back with some of that black pepper as it slowly kind of flows down. Again, it's only aged for 3 years. Not really getting a lot of those super youthful notes to it. I mean, you do pick up a little bit of that rye grain and some of that spiciness from it. But other than that, again, it is I feel it's very much a bourbon drinker's kind of rye because it does have those some of those bourbon kind of characteristics to it. Very, very good whiskey here, though. Let's get a last sip, guys. Cheers. It's nice because it has that balance, right? It has that sweet and spicy balance. But again, on the front of the palate, not much changed since then. So you still get some of that caramel, like that vanilla custard, like an oily kind of Cracker Jack. Middle of the palate is still some of those mixed berries, almost like a little bit of like a blackberry and a strawberry, maybe a little bit of like a blueberry in there. Definitely kind of intertwined together with some of that rye spice and a little bit of that rye grain there on the back of the palate. And all that still just slowly kind of transitions into the back of the palate, into the finish, with some of that black pepper that slowly starts to pull down. Again, I mean, really, really nice whiskey. And not to mention, so this rye whiskey here also won a platinum medal in the Ascot Awards. So it was, again, you know, these whiskeys were sent to all different judges. You know, not every judge got one of those. But they were sent to, you know, an array of different judges and, you know, combined scores together, and there you go. You have a platinum award-winning rye whiskey there in the Ascot Awards. But regardless, really nice rye whiskey here from OH Ingram. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get to their straight bourbon whiskey. Now, this one comes in at 105 proof, presumably aged for a minimum of 4 years. And this one also winning a platinum medal in the Ascot Awards as well. So all 3 of their expressions that they entered into the Ascot Awards, 2 of them winning platinum, 1 of them winning double platinum, and even higher. So let's get in the nose. So first thing I get is this butterscotch infused orange. Very first thing I get further into the glass. Further away from the glass, I do get a little bit of caramel, but I get more of a very kind of rich, kind of fudgy vanilla further away from the glass. It is kind of dominating that caramel, but then further in the glass again, it's like a butterscotch infused orange. It has that really nice citrus nose to it, but then also that sweetness that's just right in your face. Yeah, still, I mean, there's a lot of butterscotch on it. There's a lot of orange further in. And then further away, again, you're still getting those traditional kind of bourbon notes, more so the vanillas than the caramels. Beautiful nose. Let's get in the palate, guys. Cheers. That just has so much flavor to it. There's actually a lot going on for this being as young as it is. Middle of the palate, I get this kind of like chocolate kind of orange going on. On the end of the back of the palate, it's like a cinnamon red hot. The flavor, not necessarily the spiciness from it, like a cinnamon red hot, and then some like dark honey that kind of flows through into the back. Didn't get too much there on the front of the palate on the first sip, but just the flavors are very concentrated. Very kind of like in your face. They're very bold. Really nice first sip. Let's get the second one. So there's a very kind of unique fruity note on the front of the palate. Can't really figure out what it is exactly, but the flavors on the middle of the palate there, like that chocolate orange. The chocolate orange is it's just smack right in the middle of the palate. Very concentrated flavors. So as some of those flavors start to kind of pull down and transition through the finish, it's like a very kind of soft leather note there that appears. And with this being only, aged presumably for a minimum of 4 years, it has a lot of surprising flavors on this one. Let's get a last sip, guys. Cheers. It's absolutely delicious. I want to say that flavor on the front of the palate may be like a little bit of maybe some apricot there. And then on the middle of the palate, it is chocolate orange all day. As it transitions into the back, it's a lot of cinnamon. There's a lot of like dark honey that's kind of combining there. Those flavors are still kind of continuously pulling down. What's odd about it too is the secondary grain on this one is wheat. So you figure that there'd be more softer, kind of more fruity flavors. And I'm really getting, a little bit of that fruitiness on the front of the palate, a little bit of that orange there with that chocolate across the center of the palate. But man, I mean, just the flavor profile on this is it's very, for how long it's aged, the flavors are very surprising. Again, a hell of a job here by O.H. Ingram. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to give a big shout out to the team over at O.H. Ingram for supplying me with the samples here to review on the channel. Again, guys, both of these expressions did win platinum medals in the Ascot Awards. Again, those samples were sent to an array of judges who, felt the same way that I did when I judged these. That they were fantastic pours. I think they have, they're still, pretty young in the grand scheme of things. This one being aged for a minimum of 3, this one being presumably aged for a minimum of 4. Packed full of flavor. Fantastic whiskeys here, again, by O.H. Ingram. So guys, if you're looking for more reviews like this, hit that subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Till next time, guys, stay dusty.